Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 14th, 2013 meeting of the Goffstown Planning Board. As usual, we'll start with our introductions. Brian, you go first.
I'm Brian Rose. I'm the Planning and Zoning Administrator.
Phil Devanza, Selectman.
Gala Breck, Recording Secretary.
Tim Redmond, Chair.
Richard Meany.
Barbara Griffin.
Thank you, everyone. First order of business is the minutes from the January 24th, 2013 meeting.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Barbara, second by Richard to approve. Any discussion of the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Chair votes yes. Second action item is a 2012 impact fee reporting from staff. Brian, would you like to do this at the end of the meeting, or would you like to take the applications first?
I can do it quickly. I mean, really, it's just an FYI. These are the reports. If you want me to go through all the stuff, I can do that, but we can wait till the end of the meeting. But
Why don't you go through this one?
yeah, that'd be fun, wouldn't it?
I do have a
So-
question on it.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you. I know that this is an annual issue, but if you look at the first page of the public service facilities impact fees, I just think you want to change the next fee revision to be prior to December 20th, 2012.
Well,
It should be 13, right?
actually, no. It was supposed to be 2012. 5 years. So we actually need to do that.
Oh, okay, thank
When
you.
we
No, I
evaluate
get it,
what
I
the
get it.
fees are, the methodology.
Okay. And that's why there are different years on each of them. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because they were set up at different times.
Yeah, they were. All right, thank you.
So, Brian, if you'd like to do a report, you can go ahead and do a report.
Well, I'll very briefly just run through this. So impact fees over the past year have been collected. I believe we had somewhere in the range of 24 units constructed this year and issued certificates of occupancy, and where we collected a fee. So, and you can see from December 31st, 2011 to December 31st, 2012, for public safety facilities, we gained upwards of $20,000 in impact fees. The same thing goes for the road impact fees. It went from $53,000 to $73,000, 72,000, almost $73,000. Recreation impact fees, you won't see the gains in it because of the reduced numbers that came from basically dedicating those funds, the $59,000 and the $19,000 in March and July toward the TE project for the grant project for the rail trail. But that's currently at $64,143. School impact fees, we're almost at the bottom at the beginning of the year, but by end of the year they were at $164,000, just because that fee is so large. So with 24 units or thereabouts, it's already gained that much, so that'll be available for spending eventually. Now the last report is just a listing of every impact fee that's been collected and when it was collected and when it needs to be spent. So essentially the fee collected columns are when that fee was collected, and then the fee dispersed is when that fee has been spent or needs to be spent by, I guess. It kind of helps us know when we have to spend each of these impact fees, because if you don't spend them within 6 years of collecting them, or I guess if you don't dedicate them within 6 years of spending them, of collecting them, then you have to return them to the owner, property owner. So if you want any additional information on it, I can be glad to talk to you offline or.
Well, I think it'd be appropriate for everyone to take these home in the next couple of weeks. If they have questions or comments, they can bring it back at our next meeting, rather than try to read them tonight and understand them and get through them. And other board members will get them between now and then. And
They actually came in the mail in this week's packet.
that said, if no one disagrees, we'll move on to the next item. Okay. We will start with our first item of new business. It's map 15, lot 55, 155, 157, and 160. A proposed lot line adjustment. And a proposal to build a deck for additional outdoor seating at the North Garden Restaurant. It's several elements here. Is also included as a proposal to add a new and additional parking lot. So there's sort of three elements to this first item under new business. So, Brian, would you like to give a brief rundown on all this, or one at a time, or do you want to take them all in one group?
Be happy to just talk about all of them at the same time.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, before we
Please,
begin,
Barbara.
Brian, did you bring a printout of your reports that I read online or not?
Yes, in fact, I passed it out in front of you. You should have it
Somewhere
somewhere
in
in the
front of
file
you.
there. It's
Because I
got
didn't-
on the agenda, on the front page of the agenda, you have the circled numbers now.
New one, Barbara.
Oh, I'm trying to figure, oh, this one is new. All right, thank you.
Latest.
Sorry, I didn't realize that was new.
Okay, so the proposed project for North Garden is to approve a lot line adjustment, which would transfer .38 acres from map 15 lot 160 to map 15 lot 157. And also for approval of a site plan to extend the current parking lot to the rear of map 15 lot 157, where they will just be adjusting the lot line, and to build a 1,092 square foot outdoor seating deck for up to 40 outdoor seats on map 15 lot 155, which is just adjacent to the lounge. And you'll see that better on the site plan, and you'll also be able to, I think, get a better idea as the applicant does his presentation.
So we'll deal with the lot line adjustment first, Brian. Is that what your suggestion would be?
Well, I think in all reality, I think it's best to just talk about all of them at the same time, and you know, wait to do any action on any of them until all of them are ready. I think, you know, if I were to say, yeah, the lot line adjustment is good, I don't have any comments on it, we could approve it, but I don't know that it necessarily makes a difference whether we approve it now or later.
Okay.
So, I think the goal is to get the site plan and the deck and the parking all worked out, and so we should tackle that one as we go along. So.
Well, maybe we should have the applicant explain some of these lines on the print so we can understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think we'll, if there are questions as he does his presentation, we can definitely have him do that. So one of the main topics was they do need a waiver because of parking. The parking requirement is actually at 92 parking spots, and they definitely don't have that. They are in need of waiver of up to 31, possibly more, based on some relayout that may occur with the comments and stuff like that. So my recommendation is to grant a waiver for parking, not necessarily for a specific number at this point in time, and I don't know that the waiver needs to be done until we actually do the action on the site plan. So I don't know that we need to necessarily worry about it tonight as well, because it's not required for acceptance, but that's just one of the topics to be addressed. They are adding parking stalls, so I think that's a good thing. And also, one of the things to note is this site had a site plan done 10 years ago in 2003, where the planning board also waived the parking requirement. So, just things to consider. I've listed,
Before you go any farther, Brian, do you know the extent of the waiver from the previous plan?
the extent, well, there wasn't as much of a need on the previous plan. However, they didn't have as much parking on the previous plan either, so I think it's probably a little bit of an increase of parking, but because they're adding a deck, that sort of evens out, you know, the need and the capacity and that kind of thing. So I mean, I don't have those numbers as to what the previous one was, but it might show it on the site plan. I thought there was,
Note one, I can
Okay.
look at it.
okay,
Does you have that? Does Ray have that answer somewhere?
yeah.
Okay.
It's in the notes, I can
Okay.
expand on that.
Thank you, Ray.
So I've gone through and listed several items to consider. At this point, I'm showing that it doesn't need a variance as long as they address my comments. So I'll just leave it at that. I've met with Ray today actually, and we've gone over most of it, and it looks like they will be addressing most of the comments that were given from me. I am not aware as much on the ones from Megan, because those just came in tonight, so you have those in front of you, and we can all take a look at them. But you know, it may be best just to kind of gloss over them and take some time over the next month. And I'm planning on recommending that this be continued for 30 days so that we can address some of these comments and get it back on the table with a little bit cleaner plan. So, I mean, you've got the comments listed here as to what we're requesting from staff. Tonight, I think the best course of action would be just to vote on regional impact. My recommendation is it doesn't have any regional impact. To vote to accept the plan as complete and ready for review. Hear the applicant's presentation, open the public hearing, and then continue the public hearing to March 14th to allow more time to address all the comments from staff. And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Brian. So we'll need a motion for the items 1 and 2 on page 7.
I'll make a motion that we find that this application does not have regional impact and to accept this application is ready for review. I'll second that.
Any discussion on the motion? I have some discussion. I'd like to know why we are saying it does not have a regional impact. Can somebody cite a reason why this does not have a regional impact?
Well, for regional impact is generally determined when you have an impact on a neighboring municipality, whether it be from light, noise, smoke, odors, particles in the air, somehow detriment to the neighboring water system or whatever it may be. This being an existing site plan and not near enough to a neighboring municipality, I made that recommendation that it doesn't have the regional impact. So.
I didn't hear you say anything about traffic.
Traffic is another thing in there. I mean, there's already, you know, a restaurant there with a restaurant use. The addition of, you know, 40 seats to that, I don't believe is something that will cause a regional impact. I mean, it's gonna impact our road slightly, but in nowhere near the impact that would cause regional impact.
It's only seasonal.
and the deck is to be used seasonally, so it would,
Is that stated in the application?
Yes.
yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Anybody have any comments on the motions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of Richard's motion, who seconded, by the way?
I did.
Phil did. Did you get that? Richard's motion to find the application does not have a regional impact and accept it ready for complete ready for you. Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The chair votes yes.
I'd just like to note I have an issue that this plan does not match the previous plan, which apparently was not filed. But this applicant has waived the 65-day clock, so I voted to accept it because I don't feel that we're under a time crunch, because I think the next plan we see is going to be dramatically different, and I have some concerns about that.
Could you be a little more clear on your statement, Barbara? The plans that we have do not match the original site plan that was presented. Is that what you're saying?
It's my understanding from reading the planner's report that the site does not match the plan that was approved when, for example, the previous waiver was given. The site has been used. It's my understanding we haven't had any complaints with it. But you'll note that a lot of the planner's recommendations that were included on his report, quite honestly, related to issues that were consistent with the original plan approval in regards to berms, islands, landscaping, etc. So it would appear what has been done is that we do have an accurate depiction of the site, but it's not consistent with the approved site plan. And that's an issue we're going to have to resolve as we go through this, because on the one hand, they rely on the previous application for things like waiver of parking. You know, we did it then, so why not do it now? I'm not so interested in waiving previous issues in regards to the site plan itself with the new site plan. But as I said, given the fact that the applicant waived the 65-day clock, I'm confident we will be able to work it out in a timely manner, but I do have concerns about that.
So noted. Anyone else have any other comments related to Barbara's comments? Okay, anything else before we ask the applicant to come forward and make a presentation? Thank you, Barbara. Okay, Ray, you're up.
Just stand over there. It's easier.
Oh, you want to stand?
Well, for now, I can point, you know. I'm good at pointing.
You can sit down whenever you want.
Yeah, I'll sit down when I get tired. Evening, my name is Raymond Shea from Sanford Survey, and I'll go over again some things that Brian did. This is an application that actually does a couple things. It does a lot line adjustment, an amended site plan to an existing business. There's 3 properties involved. On Mass Road, there's 2 properties. The easterly one has the restaurant and lounge and some parking. The westerly lot has a 2-unit rental residence, and the remainder of the parking, they're both owned by North Gardens. So these are the 2 that you see as the restaurant operation. The 3rd property that the owners purchased recently was a residential lot which fronts on Laurier Street that has a single-family residence and backs up to this easterly parcel. So this is the restaurant, the parcel that has the restaurant lounge. This is the other restaurant-owned property, and then this is the 3rd, and this is where they abut. A proposal for the lot line adjustment is to take this line between the easterly restaurant lot and the single family and to push it towards the residential house, creating a smaller lot where the existing house meets all the regulations, and making this easterly restaurant lot deeper. So that's the lot line adjustment. And then, assuming that gets done, then our proposal is to extend the parking lot into that area that was formerly part of the single-family residence, that is now part of the restaurant, easterly restaurant lot, and construct a 18 by 60, essentially freestanding deck over where there were formerly 6 parking spaces in front of the lounge. So those 6 parking spaces will go away, but they'll be picked up plus others in the new parking lot to the northeast. The deck will be accessed, presently, to access the lounge, there's stairs that face Mass Road. The lounge area is about 4 feet above the parking lot. You go up the stairs to a landing and then into the lounge, or you can come up a handicap ramp, which is adjacent to the lounge and to the landing and in. This deck would be built in the parking lot up against the ramp and the landing, so that you would come up the stairs, instead of going left into the lounge, you would go right onto the deck. And the deck would be the same elevation essentially as the landing and the lounge. And we've also provided a emergency second set of stairs. Fire department felt, and planning and building department felt, because of the occupancy, the number of potential seats, which is 40, and the size, that it needed 2 accesses. So this would be like a little chained emergency stairway, but this would be the main access, essentially right across from where you enter the lounge. Again, it's a 18 by 60 deck. The waiver we're requesting, if you look at notes on the site plan, sheet 2, the parking requirements per zoning regulations for the existing use is 77. The waiver that was granted in 2003 was for 43. So the waiver that was granted was to allow about 56% of what was required. We're asking for about 58 or 59%, where our requirements, after adding the 40 seats, brings it up to about 91 required seats. And we're asking for a waiver of 55 using the same numbers that were used in 2003. We're asking for 55, but we're showing 61, so we're showing even more than the original methodology of the 2003 waiver. And as Brian said, after doing maybe a little restriping and move, we may drop from 61 maybe to 59, but we're still above the percentage. We're proposing more than what was approved percentage-wise in 2003. And based on 10 years of operation of the restaurant and lounge, we feel it works. It's a reasonable request. And the 40 seats on the lounge are seasonal. So for 7 months out of the year, those 40 seats won't need parking spaces. So it brings our parking up to, I think, 70% of what would be required. And again, that's at least 7 months out of the year, and on rainy days, the deck won't be used. So we feel the parking would be adequate with the waiver we're requesting, which again is a little higher than the waiver that was approved previously. When we did the as-built survey of the existing site area, we found that it wasn't quite built the way the 2003 approved plan was laid out. And the biggest difference was islands and green space between this row of parking and the single family, the rental unit building. But if you overlay the 2003 plan onto this, the way it was constructed, you'll see these spaces fit right in where they're supposed to. It's just that the island didn't get built. So that's, and the striping down in this area needs to be moved somewhat. But looking at Brian's comments, looking at the 2003 plan, and looking at what's out here, I think we can easily bring the plan pretty close to, bring the property pretty close to what was approved in 2003. And we've just looked at this the last couple of days, so we haven't made the changes, but I've discussed them with Brian, and I think we can adequately address the nonconformities, if you will, from the 2003 plan. So I don't think that's as big of an issue as we originally thought. Looking at, you know, he's got quite a few comments, but when you go through them, most of them do fall in the category of the previous landscaping, previous parking layout. So having said that, I'll try and answer whatever questions you might have.
Question.
Barbara?
Ray, on the parking, just because I need to understand it in my words. As to the deck you're adding,
We're adding 40 seats, yep.
you are providing, as to what's there currently, the required number of parking spaces plus more, right? Because
Well,
the
overall, we're
deck,
still asking for a waiver.
no, I understand that, but notwithstanding what's there now, if you were just in here for the deck and the parking spaces that are being added to this site, those added parking spaces more than meet the requirements for the deck itself, right?
We're losing 6 and we're adding 18 and 8.
26.
26. So we're a net gain of 20. So, and that would be,
And the parking spaces required, according to your calculations, are 12 for the deck itself.
right.
So you are adding
We're
more
adding,
parking
correct.
spaces than are required by the deck itself.
That's why our percentage
Right.
goes up from what the 2003.
I can only add and subtract, I can't divide.
So yes, we are
Okay.
adding more than we're taking away.
And were you handed the DPW comments from Megan?
I got them this afternoon.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
I
I
know-
took a look at them, and there's some things, you know, I think we can make an effort to sit down with Megan and the underground infiltration may be a little difficult. We're trying to keep this parking lot basically at the existing grade. It's fairly flat here, and then it slopes down at a nice gentle grade, so we're not trying to put a lot of fill and a lot of earthwork. We're basically building this at the grade and catching the water down at this corner and then bringing it back. If we can oversize that drain pipe and make it a perforated pipe to infiltrate, and that's certainly a good idea. And we'll work with Public Works on that. I think that was really the big issue. As far as easements for drainage ways, you know, we can. Again, I took a quick look at it, but I didn't see anything
Okay.
there
Thank you.
that's going to kill us.
Just for clarification too, the requirement is 14.6 parking spaces.
Oh, it is?
He has
Okay.
two versions of what the required would be. One was what his proposed waiver required
Oh, all
would be.
right, which has his
Well-
percentage, what I don't care about, but
Right,
he's
so that's
still
the
adding
12.
more than what is required, okay.
Right.
So did you do drainage calculations on
We
that
did.
parking lot?
We did.
And how much are you increasing the off-site water?
You should have asked me. I know my engineer's hat on. I'll have to look through this. There is an increase, however, you know, it's a municipal line that empties out with a drainage easement at the outfall. So we felt even with a slight increase, it wasn't adverse downstream impact. And it's something we can work with Megan on.
Was that their opinion?
I didn't see her opinion on that. Is that your opinion? With addressing
Minor
infil-
increase, it
yeah.
looked like it was, about 1 CFS, I'd say,
Yeah.
less than that.
Yeah.
You know, I had some comments on the drainage study on how it was calculated and stuff, so I'll work with Ray on that, and I don't think there's gonna be a huge increase in water, that's why I was hoping they might even be able to use the same size pipe they have and just perforate it and infiltrate it into the ground possibly. You know, it is near our outfall, so it's not like we're adding water further up the system, it's actually near the largest pipes we have in that section, it's right at the end, it's going into a 24-inch pipe. And I'm not aware of any problems or, you know, water bubbling out of the ground or anything like that where the system's totally overwhelmed. But it's always good to try and infiltrate where you can. So that's why I was hoping we could possibly do a perforated pipe to help out.
Brian, do our regulations that pre-development runoff not exceed post-development runoff in a case like this?
I believe that's the case.
So that would require a waiver then. If they want to increase the off-site, they'd have to get a waiver from that, wouldn't they?
That's why I'm trying to get them to infiltrate it or store it, make a larger pipe to store it, have a weir where it can go over and overflow in.
But that would require a waiver then if they want to do that.
Not if they can meet the 25 years
No,
old,
not
that's all
if-
they have to do for our regs.
We can work on the proposed proposals that Megan suggested, and if we can't reach that watershed, then we can request a waiver, but it wouldn't be for much if we do need a waiver.
Well, the soils are good there, so you should be able to infiltrate some. It's all sand in that part of town. Any other board members have a question? Ray, are you going to do something with the existing dumpsters? I circled them on your print.
They're fenced on two sides, we're gonna fence the other two sides.
But by our regulations, they have to be screened, correct?
Right.
So they will be, so your new print will show them screened? Okay. How about your snow storage? I don't see any notes on here about that.
On the sheet 3, we show some snow storage areas, and the last note on,
There's a note that says it's gonna be
sheet
removed.
2 says snow to be removed if it's a problem.
Yeah, that's kind of a slippery slope, Ray, as far as I'm concerned, because everybody says, yeah, we'll take it off if we can't store it, and then it doesn't happen in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
So I'd like to,
I agree 100%.
I'd like to see the snow storage to meet some degree of the capacity, if you can do it.
Well, when we add some islands, actually, they're storing snow where the islands should be, so they're using the area properly. And we'll better define some areas up by the existing structure when we come back, when the plan gets revised.
Is that what these sort of puffy-looking
Right.
areas are on here? These are the snow
Yeah.
storage proposed?
Yes, they are.
How about our lighting? Is that gonna, we do require a lighting plan for this site?
We're adding one light. Presently, there's two probably 30-foot tall light poles up in the existing area. We're proposing one 15-footer down in the island in the lower part of the new parking lot, and we will provide the lumens.
How long have those poles been there? Because I think the old site plan said they were 25 feet.
They might be 25. I didn't measure them. The day I took the rod out there, it was frozen. I couldn't push the rod up to measure them, but they're about 25.
Are they shielded for night sky regulations?
Yes, they're boxed facing downward, and that's what we're proposing. Similar unit. I think on sheet 3 there's a little schematic of the type of light fixture, which is similar to what's out there. There are some wall-mounted lights. We feel the deck, at least the half towards the building, will be illuminated by lights that are now illuminating the handicap ramp. And we've got some, we talked about putting some little cap lights on some of the posts on the parking lot side, and I'll pass this around, but they're very low voltage, just to get a little bit of light, a little bit of mood lighting, and lighten up the far side of the deck away from the building. But I don't think lighting's going to be an issue out there, and those would have no spillover anywhere.
What's the handicap parking requirement for a site of this size?
3.
That's all that's required?
It's like 1 per 25 spaces, I think, in our ordinance.
Even though we're granting a waiver for the parking, would it be 1 for the required spaces or 1 for the actual
We're
spaces?
still proposing more than 50 spaces, so that is what basically jumps it to 3. I mean, technically, their requirement would be 4 if they were providing all of the parking.
But we're giving them a waiver from the parking.
Right.
So in my opinion, they should provide their handicap spaces for the required amount of spaces, even though we're giving them a waiver. I think we need to see at least one more handicap spot on there.
Okay.
Megan, did you make any comments with regards to the entrance and exit to Mast Road, or is everything good with DPW on that?
I did not make any comments on the exit or entrance. I wasn't aware of any problems over there. I can
Mhm.
talk to PD to see if they have any issues with that.
The police had no comment
No,
on
they
the,
did
Yeah,
No
they sent
comment.
an email back, or a memo back saying no comment.
One thing that does help you, Ray, you have on-street parking on your side as
correct,
well, which
that's
is,
part of our
didn't
our
bring that up.
waiver input, correct.
Mhm.
And again, there is a history at this property, and seems to have worked with a less waiver of less percentage than we're proposing. I'm sure there are, New Year's Eve, maybe a little tough parking there, but in general, it works.
based on the parking waivers we're looking at, should we be proposing that the deck be seasonal in perpetuity and not permit covering it and turning it into full-time usable space at some point?
Yeah, I think we could put that on the plan.
I'm just asking the board for that
Yeah,
input.
Well, I was actually gonna ask did they promise not to shovel it, but I didn't think we needed to put that note on the plan.
No, there's no intention to put a cover over it. If we did it, we would have to come back to the board.
All right.
Tim, if you're done, I have a couple more.
Please, Barbara, I was just waiting for someone else to speak.
Let me go back to the beginning, the lot line adjustment.
Yes.
Why aren't we doing a straight line?
Well, they presently have a garden,
I saw that on
area,
the plan.
and they use what they grow in the restaurant, and they just want to keep that
Okay.
on their property.
And if you ran it straight along the stockade fence line where you've got it by the garden area, does that have a problem with the amount of acreage that you've got?
No, we have,
around it?
the remaining lot is double, it's a 5,000 square foot minimum, so, one thing we do have to watch out is the setback, because it's a 30-foot rear, I believe, so.
Okay, so you jogged, okay.
Yeah, we have to stay 30 feet from the deck back there and the handicap ramp, so, but the jog is because of the garden.
All right, and that area of that lot that you're proposing to transfer to 157, it's currently what?
It's,
A yard, essentially?
well, they have actually moved the fence to there and pushed snow over there, and it's bare ground.
There's no active use, though, okay.
Well, there may be a car or two parked up there.
All right.
I'm not gonna-
All
I'm
right,
not
well,
gonna say.
what I'm sort of going to that from there is what's happening along the abutting line, because specifically in regards to lots 156, 58, and 59, you've got parking,
Right. There's a 6-foot stockade fence around the entire property. Fairly
Okay.
new, nice, white vinyl stockade fence. So it's screened completely around the property.
so as to those parking spaces, what you're talking about is putting curbing up along the front side of that?
Talking about bringing curbing up a portion of the way. We designed this to slant towards that northeast
Okay,
corner where the catch basin is, and that's the way the ground lies now. So we have curbing to catch the water as it hits that to go into the catch basin. We weren't proposing curbing up there, but we can bring it up to some degree. But it slopes towards the catch basin. So
does that mean the cars are gonna be sloped uphill as they park in those spaces?
right, but like 2%. It's
So the
not.
stockade fence is still gonna block the headlights, is
Oh,
what I'm trying to
absolutely,
get at?
absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And on the other side of that same section where you're proposing.
down?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you go down, what is, and there's, again, the
It's all-
6-foot
it's-
stockade
it's-
fence
it's-
along the
it's
edge.
It's from here to here, it's all the way around the property, it's.
Okay.
It's a good fence. Makes good neighbors,
Thanks.
hopefully.
I'm wondering about noise that's going to come from this new deck for outdoor dining and drinking in the summertime. How about our neighbors at 15156 and 15158? Are we going to be transferring a lot of noise to those people who live over there and disturb them at night?
I wouldn't if I was out there. There's no music planned, I don't mean to be flip, there's no music planned. It's gonna be up to 40 people at an outdoor deck, which can probably generate some noise.
What are the hours of operation now for the lounge?
I think midnight or 1.
1?
Midnight.
1?
I suppose part of the reason for the deck is for smokers, right?
I think probably, yeah. And eating outside in the summer is a big thing. If you have that, then you've got a leg up on other venues.
Well, the deck is proposed next to the lounge, it's not proposed next to the restaurant,
No,
so I'm
but-
wondering what the difference would be between the use. Would it be more for bar patrons, or would it be more for restaurant patrons?
Probably more for bar patrons, but I would think food would be served out
I mean,
there.
you can get
Right,
food in
right,
the
right.
lounge.
That's
so-
fine, just
Right.
making sure it's out there.
I know that because when you show up too late for dinner, they tell you to go to the lounge.
I just want to be
And
sure that,
that's another issue with the, what we feel is a plus about the waiver. The restaurant and lounge don't peak the same hours, so you're not all fighting for the same parking spaces. So there's a little relief there. The later it is, the lounge people will use the spaces that the restaurant people are no longer there, so.
well, the noise would be one of those caveats in the approval that, if
Yes.
it becomes a problem, we have the right to revisit the
We
problem.
understand that, yes.
Well, just for the record, we also have a noise ordinance,
Correct.
so, which has been successful in other situations like this.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, I'm just making
Also,
sure that,
As an
also
issue.
might be good to notify the tenants of that two-family that's there. I mean, they're gonna bear the brunt of any noise. Obviously, it's part of the site plan, but have the owners discussed that with the tenants, or?
well, my opinion, Brian, is that the tenants in the existing two-family, that they rent from the restaurant owners.
Right.
It's the people who live at 156 and 158 and 159, those people are not part of this site plan, so they're the ones that would be the direct
I mean,
receipt.
if the owner loses a tenant, that's basically their operation. It's more of a butter issue for us, I think.
Because this won't be a case of it, if you move in next to an airport, you complain about the noise. We're bringing the noise to these homes, so I want to be sure that those conditions are made in the
Okay.
end.
I'm okay.
Anybody else? Richard, you got something?
You good?
Bill?
I'm fine.
Any more questions for Ray at this time? So Ray, you're coming back with a revised plan, is that what?
We can address the majority of these issues that we've seen in the last couple of days. And we don't mind waiting a month, just give us time to address them properly and come back on the 14th if that's the board's pleasure. It's construction, if the board approves, construction can't start till spring anyway, so.
Well, I would like to ask the board at this point if, we have to open a public hearing first,
Right.
though. Yeah. I will defer my questions. So if does anybody have anything else for Ray at this time before I open the public hearing?
I just have one thing.
Please?
On the lighting, where you have the one new light in the proposed
Correct.
parking area, that will be, I noticed that it's closer towards the end of the parking lot. Just a concern that I have is that you have along the lot 158, just above the house, the rental house,
Yeah.
right in that area,
from what I see, and the only concern I have is that might be a dark area, just to make.
There's a light right here.
I.
Tall. So we're thinking, you know, we can do a lumens.
Just to make,
plans,
just,
but-
the only thing I'm suggesting is that, to make sure that it is, and you might possibly need to move I'm not a lighting expert, but it would just to make sure that, there's no dark area.
Right. We'll look at that.
And is a lighting plan coming forth, or are we not looking for a lighting plan?
No, I asked for one, so.
Because I'd like to know if the current lighting does not meet the regulations and leaves the property. They may have to make adjustments with the current lighting, since this is a brand-new site plan, to meet our regulations regarding light that leaves the site. Okay. Hang out, Ray. You might have to answer more questions. You want to sit down?
I'll sit up. I don't want to sit up.
All right, at this point, if no other board members have any questions or comments, we'll open up the public hearing. Anybody in the public would like to be heard or speak to this application, please be recognized, come forward, identify yourself, and we'll hear from you.
Name's Stash Zopa.
Could you please spell that for the secretary?
S-Z-O-P-A.
And what's the
First-
first name?
Stash, S-T-A-S.
Okay, sir.
I'm just
And your address?
right on the corner of Roosevelt and Laurier.
Can you identify where you are on the map so we'll know?
I'm right across the street.
Right there.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Both lots,
Yeah, there's two
Yep.
lots there owned by,
that one
Okay.
and here.
Yeah, we see them both now on our print. Go ahead.
My concern is the expansion into the residential area is going to just bring more noise and, you know, the parking, I think it's just going to impact all along that area. That Laurier Street really pretty much is a residential area. And also like runoff, that whole corner, Roosevelt and Laurier, there's a lot of bad drainage in that area. The streets tend to flood a lot. And I know I've got some issues with water puddling up in front of my location, and I know the neighbors on the opposite side of me, even though they're not abutters, they also have water issues. That there's really bad drainage all on that intersection there. So, you know, runoff from an additional parking lot might cause some additional drainage issues.
Before you get up, I want to ask Brian a question. Brian, are we moving a commercial property into a residential property?
No, this is, the commercial zone line
I
is
see it's in the center of the road.
center of Laurier.
So we are not approving commercial development in a residential zone.
Not in a residential zone, however, I mean, we all understand that there are existing houses along Laurier, so the use is residential, but
That house is in a commercial zone.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
So that's basically it, just the noise and noise, additional, you know, headlights and everything, and you know, possibly adding to the flooding situation, the bad drainage, and on a corner of Roosevelt and Laurier, that whole intersection, it's just is very, very bad for drainage. Really isn't any drainage. So, that's it. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions for this gentleman before he gets up and disappears?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zopa. Anybody else?
Yeah. Greg Russo, owner of 7 Roosevelt Street, which is just south of the new proposed parking area. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the beautiful fence that you put up. It actually, they've done some nice improvements to the property already, and I'd like to support this proposed plan. We did have a couple of questions. One is the lighting. Like you mentioned, we would like to keep the lighting as much as we could on site. We have a 2-family building, or a 2-story building, 3-family. And we just don't want our tenants to be impacted negatively through more lighting onto, into their bedroom windows and the such. And then the lastly is the curbing, or potential curbing up against the fence. It is a nice new fence, and we understand, we know how things go down the road. We don't want that fence to become distressed over the years, and we might think that curbing will help keep bumpers and cars off of that fence in the future.
And snow.
And snow.
However, once a fence is shown as part of a site plan, it's a permanent part of the site plan. So should that fence ever get damaged or get knocked down, they would be obligated to put it back up because it's shown on the site plan as part of the site.
Okay, great.
They don't have the opportunity to just not put it back up.
Okay, excellent.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak to this application? The public hearing will not be closed tonight. This meeting will more than likely be continued. So as the plan develops and as the public hearing is continued, you have more opportunity to present questions and ask about what's going on. Okay. Anything else from the board?
I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing and consideration of this application to March 14th to allow more times to address comments from staff and public.
Second.
Well, before we move forward with that motion, Barbara,
Yep.
I'm wondering if we should consider the lot line adjustment, because it would be foolish for them to continue if we don't approve the lot line adjustment. So should we do that in a separate motion so that that's part of the application is completed to allow them to move forward?
I guess my point would be, I don't foresee this, but once you approve a lot line adjustment, you've approved it. And
No, we've only approved the adjustment. We haven't approved any of the
I
improvement.
understand that, but as to the owners of the property, you have approved a lot line adjustment. It's just you haven't approved everything on this application. I asked my question as to why that wasn't a straight line. I don't have a problem with the line the way it is. And so that was my only issue with the lot line adjustment. But if you don't approve this whole site plan, maybe the owners want a different lot line adjustment, and I don't want them to have to pay for another application to do a lot line adjustment of a lot line adjustment that they never used in the plan. So, I understand it, but I don't hear anybody even asking questions about the lot line adjustment, so I'm willing to say that I don't see a problem with it and can't
Letting
see
it
my
go-
vote change on that.
Letting it go through as a package?
Yeah,
Who am I waiting?
Okay.
It'll be simultaneous.
yeah.
All right, does anybody have any other questions for the applicant to bring back to the next meeting? And we'll move on with your motion, Barbie. Could you please repeat your motion?
I'll
If you
make a
can
motion to continue the public hearing and further consideration of this application until the meeting of March 14th, in order to give time for consideration of staff and public comment. How did I do at repeating myself?
You did great. I didn't hear you the first time.
And I'll resecond.
It's like a broken record.
Your second.
Yeah, I've been told that before.
And Ray, is that
Today, as a matter of fact.
an appropriate amount of time for you, Ray? 3:14?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right. Any discussion of the motion?
No.
All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The chair votes yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Take our 8:30 break now, Barbara?
Bad enough we had a meeting on Valentine's Day.
So we're not taking an 8:30
I
break.
have spent Valentine's Day many years with.
And
I
birthdays.
have probably spent Valentine's Day with more men than most people have.
Wait a minute,
Budget
Barbara.
committees,
Barbara, that could be a
selectmen,
confusing
planning
thing.
board. It doesn't make any difference to me.
It's available, yeah, I just have copies.
Jeff, are you here for this?
Quote in the paper.
You have something to put up?
on TV. That's right. Unless it didn't contain.
All right, let's bring this meeting back to order. The next application on tonight's agenda, under new business, is map 18, lot 60. It is the Abington Square project on Mast Road. For anybody at home that doesn't know where that is, that's where they built the new Rite Aid, that property that has a little park in front of it. And we have a completeness and final review for a proposed two-lot subdivision. Brian?
Okay. So. As you stated, Mr. Chair, this is a request for approval of a two-lot subdivision for map 18, lot 60-1. Split that lot into two lots, and on the lot on the left, which would end up still being 18, lot 60-1, to build a 7,381 square foot retail building, proposed auto zone, which is auto parts retail store. There is, in my opinion, no regional impact again on this, based on noise, smoke, odors, traffic, anticipated emissions. I've listed in the report that architectural renderings were not submitted with this site plan, and as that is a submittal requirement for the site plan application, I'm recommending that the board waive that requirement for acceptance purposes only. And I know Barbara hates that terminology, but I have requested that, and they are going to be submitting it. So if the board wanted to accept it, I think it would be okay. Most of the regulations in our ordinance and development regulations have all been met with this site plan design. We did provide comments to them in the recent few days, and they've actually had a chance already to address several of those comments and have resubmitted a few things based on those comments. We still need to get additional information and additional changes to the site plan, but they did submit a letter, which I didn't copy to you just because I didn't feel it relevant tonight, but when we get to the next version of the site plan, most of the comments will have gone away and we won't have to deal with it at all. So I'm not going to go through each of the comments, but I'll just suffice it to say that we're working on that. So my recommendation would be that the board find that there is no regional impact, waive the architectural renderings as a submittal requirement for acceptance purposes only, accept the application for a two-lot subdivision and site plan as complete and ready for review with that waiver, and then hear presentation from the applicant, open the public hearing, and continue the public hearing to March 24th, 2013, to allow for additional time for submittal of architectural renderings and to address other comments from staff. And also, you do have a memo in front of you from Megan, who submitted comments tonight to me as well, so I made a copy of that and put that on your data there. With that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Brian. I'd like to take the items 1, 2, and 3 individually as we go through the first three motions. So I need a motion for item 1.
Make a motion that we find that this application does not have regional impact.
Second.
Motion by Richard, seconded by Barbara. Once again, Brian, does this meet the criteria for not having a regional impact?
Yes, in my opinion, yes.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor of finding the application does not have a regional impact, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The chair votes yes. Second one, waive the architectural renderings. What I'd like to ask the board before we grant this waiver for acceptance purposes only is, are we going to be wanting to see a standard box store, or are we going to look for something that's a little more in keeping with some of the architectural elements that we have asked for other buildings around town that soften the building a little bit? We had the CVS application down where King Lane was, and they showed up with a big box store with a big orange stripe all the way around it. Nobody really liked that. So I'm all for waiving the architectural renderings. I just want to be sure that the applicant knows what the board would like to see at some point during these hearings. Barbara?
We already saw this as a conceptual. As a matter of fact, we got submitted the same picture that we saw at the conceptual, and we already commented on pictures of the building. So, I mean, I'm going to vote against waiving it because it was pretty clear that was required as part of the application. This applicant knows better. And, you know, we already had a discussion about it, but I don't think we need to make any more comment on it. We actually talked about, and they did, how high up on the side certain things would come and that they needed to figure out what side they were going to enter on. So, you know, if the applicant chooses to come in without stuff on an application they're asking to be complete, you know, so be it.
Kind of along. Richard?
My comments were the same up to I'm going to vote against it. We saw it. We made our comments then with the and I was happy with it at that point. So if the motion is made to waive architectural for acceptance, I would vote for that part.
But if we already voted on our likes or dislikes, how come it's not here tonight?
Well, it was a conceptual. We didn't vote. We just discussed
That's right.
it. But
Bill, do you have any comments?
Well, I'm a little disappointed that they're requesting that, because exactly as, I mean, I'm the one who asked some questions about the building. So I have a little difficulty with having the request for the waiver.
I would just like also to point out for purposes of the discussion that unlike the previous applicant, this one has not waived the 65-day clock. And we have, I think this should be a pretty straightforward application. This was done as a mixed-use development site. Traffic studies have already been done. I think this ties in nicely with the certified sites presentation you're going to see from Southern New Hampshire Planning. But it should be flying through when everything is done on the plan. And I have concerns that we don't have the drawing, which is required to be part of the plan, and I don't think it will in this time, but often those things for acceptance only slide through the cracks. And we have over 2 pages of comments on the plans. I don't know.
I think that's another subject that
Yeah, okay.
comes up. We have way too many comments here. So maybe the plan is not ready to be presented at this time.
Sorry, I digress.
So we're going to take up number 2 on the staff recommendations at this point.
Okay, I'll make the motion. Waive architectural renderings as a submittal requirement for acceptance purposes only.
Motion by Richards. Anybody want to second it? There's no second to the motion. Back to you, Brian. So is the application not complete at this time?
I think the board would have to vote on that. So, I mean, it would appear that if the board is unwilling to waive that requirement, that would be the case. But I would say the board should move to either not accept the application or, I don't know.
Well, I know it's probably a little out of turn at this point, but I'd like to offer Jeff an opportunity to speak to the reason why the architectural plans were not submitted. I think it's fair to let Jeff speak to that. For the record, please.
Sure, Jeff Cavan with TF Moran's office. What we have here is a developer lined up AutoZone to come onto the property. Any type of national firm, which AutoZone is, they have a corporation sitting over there, and Robert Cruz, the owner of the property, has gone through their real estate office saying, okay, you have to have certain architectural to satisfy him or the developer, irrelevant of what the town requires or doesn't require. AutoZone themselves then shifts it to their construction people or development people, and they kind of go down a road. So what occurred was they started looking at alternatives that would, save them money. And basically he told them, no, you have to get back on track here where we're at. So, we've been working with AutoZone trying to get them to produce this information. We have a footprint that we just got yesterday. It does not differ from what we have on the plan more than 6 inches in either direction, but it's, we wanted an actual hard and fast footprint before we went through and finalized everything, because if it changed, we wanted to take care of it all at once. It appears that, they are moving forward. We've set deadlines for them, and they just haven't been able to get there because of, again, it's a corporate office. We've been told this is, we're going to get this architecture. They've given us the block. This feature is located in that location on the building. So we're expecting, this architecture on the elevation. From my standpoint, why it was important, or why we were trying to get in front of this board, is so that we could get acceptance tonight, and in a month, I'm planning on wrapping up all my plans and everything within next week, and by early next week submit to Brian so he has time to review them and cross all the Ts. We've been in front of Sewer Commission and got their blessing on what we're doing. Like you said, the rest of it is relatively straightforward. If the board chooses not to accept this tonight, I guess I would ask that we be given the potential of coming before you on that meeting and get acceptance and hear an action that night if possible. Again, this is, from the site plan standpoint, about as straightforward as you can get, because the town already approved this, or a retail building on this site. This is basically what you're looking for. The lighting, everything is consistent with the project. And this was the developer trying to maintain some consistency within the development as far as architecture, to make sure he was satisfied that there was consistency. So that was the bump in the road from our standpoint, as we just couldn't get them as a corporation to move fast enough.
Were they notified that they were required to provide the
Yes.
architectural drawings?
Yeah,
So they knew about it?
Yes, they've had approximately 6 weeks or so.
And can you tell us why they've chosen not to waive the 65-day clock?
We would be happy to waive the 65-day clock. I mean, we plan to be out of here, like I said, next month. From the developer standpoint, he's got, what we're finding, more projects coming through our office. They have a deadline with a bank or, a financial agreement that really casts them in stone. So we're really pushed up against the wall to hit deadlines, more. So, our intention is that, we would be out of here, back in front of you with everything complete, all T's crossed at the next, at that March meeting, so.
Well, I think it's fair to say, Jeff, that this board would love to assist you in getting this done quickly. But if the applicant has chosen not to meet the criteria for the application, I don't think the board has any other alternative than to require that this applicant, as any other applicant, follow the rules. So I'm going to let the rest of the board members speak if they choose. Everybody done talking? It's awful quiet.
Can I ask the
Please.
applicant some?
Speak right up.
This got done, our end had some late things too, because of things going on here. And you saw the comments from Brian when, yesterday?
He got them Friday.
Okay. Have you two had an opportunity to discuss those comments?
Yes, we've looked at them, and again, we've responded. I wouldn't expect Brian to put them back in front of you, but we did respond. I don't see any issues, and we met with Megan today, and I don't see any issues with the comments. Most of it's T-crossing type stuff from my standpoint.
Well, there's also some landscaping and awning, which is architectural, and,
Yes.
you know, there are some other stuff that is
What-
gonna require some other input from other than sort of
Yeah.
you as the authorized applicant.
Yeah, what had occurred when we turned in our, well, AutoZone was going to submit the landscaping plan, and what was not turned on was a lot of the existing landscaping that is already on this site and property, because this site comes through the park.
Right.
All that's landscape, none of these trees have been turned on, so it looked
Pretty bare.
kind of barren.
Okay.
Okay, but we turned all that on and showed, we added the 4 trees down on the right side of the property behind, what's the back of the building, you know, so.
And I wasn't sure, just as to the two of you, in the reports tonight, I saw references to bike racks being required and contained. Is there a bike rack on this plan, or is?
We didn't have one, but we've
gonna-
added
Okay,
one.
I couldn't, you said there were on some, okay.
Yeah.
So, Brian, do you think that you're gonna be able to go through these comments that you had on this plan?
Yeah, in
based on
fact, they sent a memo back to me already, and like I said, like he said, they're going to be addressing most everything that I requested. So, I think it should be easy enough to get through the comments between now and March 14th.
Okay, now let me move on to this one, the DPW comments. Because, quite frankly, Jeff, this was a little annoying, that Megan had to go through and make some of these kind of comments on a plan, where we pay for staff to go through some of this stuff. And, or somebody pays for staff, and, I don't know, she had a bad couple of days, it looks like, looking at plans, as far as I'm concerned. So,
Well,
are there any issues with Megan's comments that you said you've had a chance to talk to her about?
no. Again, one of the difficulties on this plan is that, like, existing conditions, for whatever reason, and that's not a lot of the comments, but they put the survey out to bid, and they hired Holden to come in and do the existing conditions, so there's things missing off their existing conditions plan. But in general, you're
Like
talking,
map and whatnot.
you're talking all very minor things from my standpoint that we can address.
So, I need to figure out how we can do this without accepting this, because I don't want any new notices to abutters, depending on what the board does. And what I'm hearing, that you would come back in March, and I wouldn't have 1, 2.5, 3, 4 pages of comments to be looking at in regards to the plan. And I'm looking at Brian, I guess, for that.
Well, I was going to make that comment as well. I think if the board doesn't accept the plan tonight, we would have to re-notify for a public hearing, because we're not even opening a public hearing.
If we
that
don't
you-
accept
That you
it.
could continue. So, I believe that's the case. I don't know if you have to do it that way or not, but, I don't know. I don't know what the requirement is for continuing a public hearing.
You have to open one to continue one. We have to accept the application. We have to have a comment, discussion. We have to open the public hearing. No one sees to comment. We keep the public hearing open and we continue to a date certain.
Just for purposes of the record, in this case right now, there would appear to be no members of the public to speak.
They've been noticed?
Yeah. I'm assuming there was no butters list in the application.
Brian, did you have a TRC for this project?
We did, yeah. They came in and spoke to us back, I don't know, a month ago or so. About a month ago. I don't recall the date.
Because the notes here, the police and fire have no comments. Is that their official statement?
Yes.
Okay. No comments because they came to the TRC meeting and had no comments, but not no comments because they weren't there.
Right, they came, they had no comment, and submitted that memo to me.
Has the determination been made as to who's going to maintain the park in the end of this project?
That was gonna be a joint effort by all the property owners.
Yeah,
in the-
I believe we submitted the covenants to you. I'm not, if we did not, I have them right there. Yes, basically, the documents call for percentages of maintenance for both the roadway and that park, split between the owners of the property.
And then ultimately with the third owner when the
That's
third
correct.
pad gets built out?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that's pursuant to condominium docs or covenants on real estate ownership?
Covenants and easement documents that have been recorded at the registry.
Because it would be nice to make sure that when Mr. Cruz finally gives this project up, that him and his wife aren't down there cutting the grass and picking up the trash, which I think they've been doing right
They
along.
have been. There was a little fence incident that he's not happy about either. Replacing that, so.
Well, what's the opinion of this board?
I can make that motion again.
You can if you like.
Seems
Richard,
like
you're
we've
well
been-
within your...
We've been working toward yes.
Before you make your motion, it sounds to me like you're expecting to come back to the March meeting and get it all wrapped up in one meeting.
Yes.
That's a pretty big project for one meeting.
Well, that's one reason why I wanted to get to the public hearing to see if, talking about some of the details of landscaping and whatnot. There isn't a lot, again, this was already approved, traffic is addressed, it comes out at a signal. We've worked out utilities that have somewhat been laid out on site. The light style and whatnot, in fact, the lights that run down the property line between the Rite Aid and this property are double-headed. So there's already lighting on our site that has been out there. So that whole side is on. So, there isn't a whole lot other than to produce, the photometrics that document it from your standpoint. And we did, again, AutoZone wanted to produce the lighting plan, and at this point, I've gone to my consultant so that it's in a format that answers all questions from your standpoint, because I didn't like the product that I got. So I should have that tomorrow or Monday. So I understand it's a substantial project because of where it is, but I think because of it's kind of almost a continuation or showing the specifics on this site where something was already approved. I don't think it's that big of a leap from the board's perspective, but that's one reason why I wanted to get it accepted and have a discussion to see if there were other details that I was missing.
Thank you. Phil, I was just going to ask a question, Phil. Does either you or Barbara remember us ever waiving architectural renderings for a prior application? For acceptance purposes only? I mean, do we have a precedent established already?
I have to tell you, I don't recall whether we have or not. I don't recall.
I don't recall.
I'm sorry, Phil, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt you. Go ahead.
that's fine, because you led right into my concern. I guess what I'm hearing here is that there's a anticipation that this will be finalized at the next meeting.
I'm not anticipating the board's action. I'm just telling you what I'm going to be attempting to do.
I understand, and that's why I use the word anticipation.
Okay.
Okay? My concern is the request for a waiver of the architectural renderings. When architectural design was something that was somewhat of a concern. And I just have a difficulty understanding the request for me to waive a rendering that seems to be, to me, the biggest question. And then thinking that this is going to get approved at the next meeting, where it seems the only thing to me really is, I mean, all these other issues seem to be non-issues, the other things that have been discussed. But it's the rendering. I mean, what is it going to look like is the major concern, and that's not what's in front of us.
Right. I hear you. Like I said, if we did everything we could to move it along, and again, they were talking about moving off of this. Now, when we came,
Yeah, you said that.
Say that again?
AutoZone was looking at alternatives. Okay? This is, when I came here, the board liked this, and this is what we told them we were expecting. And so when they started moving, it took us to push back. And so this is what I plan on bringing back to the board. And I know that if they come back and change this, come back with any alternative, that then I have a problem with the board. I understand that.
And the property owner too. I got a call from Robert Cruz saying, did you tell the AutoZone people that, we had, no regulations on, what the building looks like, because they're proposing, a very cheap looking building. And I said, well, I told them this is what we have in our regulations, but I told them also that I would be looking, fairly stringently at this building to make sure that it fits in with the site and the Rite Aid design of that, and kind of conforms to that conceptual that we saw. And so I actually made a call to AutoZone and said, I hope you weren't misconstruing what I was telling you by saying, that I was going to be looking at this, but that our regulations, they're somewhat nil on design of buildings.
They're subjective.
Yeah, they are subjective, but I know what our board's looking for, and and obviously the property owner's looking for the same thing. So they sort of had to switch gears again and get back on track from what they sort of veered off of, and so that's, I think, part of what the delay is and why they don't have the renderings in place. So.
And I think we have to go all the way back to when Abington Square was proposed by Mr. Cruz.
Right.
He came in here and told us about his project in Bedford
Right.
at the corner of Wallace Road and Route 101,
Right.
and how that building was all built in the colonial style architecture, and he was bringing that model to Goffstown to try to bring that same model. And
it's
this
exactly
is
what he stuck to. I mean,
and this is, if the building is going to go away from architectural renderings, it's going away from Mr. Cruz's original statements to this board as to what he was going to put in this project.
Yeah, and this is our intention.
And that's like a baby version of what is over in Bedford at that 101 Wallace Road project.
Yeah.
I mean, those buildings actually look like old barns and colonial homes.
The one is, the bank
Right.
The Laconia Savings Bank.
actually has the barn inside of it, the framework. But
And the building on the corner is the old telephone building, which they renovated, and they turned it into another building.
So, I mean, Robert has told them, that he's not accepting, variations unless it is completely consistent with either this, or it has to be something that is similar
Better
in
than
style.
that.
Yeah. So
So AutoZone is sort of trying to move away from the,
I think at this point, we got a footprint yesterday that nails it down, has this feature on it and the awnings, so, like I said, I'm expecting it to come in and the elevations are of this building. And like I said, if for some reason they veered off, then I know I have problems, not just here, but with the owner as well.
well, you know, a letter to the editor in today's paper stated how the planning board needs to approve more businesses. And that this board is very friendly to business approvals in this town. There's several out there right now waiting to go. And I don't want to see AutoZone go away because of some architectural renderings. However, it was presented to this board by the property owner way back when that this is what they were going to do, and we're just holding that applicant to their word as far as I'm concerned.
This isn't the board, like I said. I have more problems with the property owner than I would with the board if they come back with something that isn't to that satisfaction. So I'm not putting any weight on this issue. Has nothing to do with it isn't the board's problem, and I'm not taking it as you're being unreasonable at all. I'm just telling you, if you don't feel that this can be accepted tonight, that, again, I would be coming back with hopes that I could get it accepted, heard, and acted on at the March meeting. Again, just trying to stay up with my client's schedule. So,
Barbara, you're lucky you want to.
Well, no, I just sort of say we've essentially discussed the comments, the application, and where we're going. The only thing we've missed is the public hearing, but by not accepting the application, the reality is there is no public for the public hearing. I've been screaming about waivers and not having complete plans before in the beginning, so I'm not really inclined to move on my position on this, because I do think this was a prime application that if it came in with all the T's crossed and everything that we needed, we could have even done it all tonight.
Right.
Because we didn't need the traffic study, and essentially all the abutter public, all of that stuff really happened when Mr. Cruz did the whole original development. So, I mean, I am not happy about continuing it because it means there's renoticing in another hearing. But you know what? At a certain point, it would appear the applicant's agent was pretty aware that there were deficiencies in the application when he came forward here tonight that were caused by corporate. But you know what? That's not our issue. I'd rather have a plan that goes forward and is done. So anyways, that's my comment.
I don't think we're really going to make any headway tonight, even if we did accept it. What are we going to talk about? The nuts and bolts of this plan are on the print from a prior approval. Traffic study, drainage, parking lot, it's all a done deal. The basics of this project are basically the architectural elements of this building and getting an approval for this building. And we don't have a drawing to even discuss tonight, so what's to actually discuss, as far as I'm concerned? Bill?
Yeah, I know, I agree. And the only other thing that we have is the landscaping. But it's difficult to deal with the landscaping when you don't have the architectural. I mean, it's...
And honestly speaking, Phil, we have never denied a landscape plan since the time I've been on this board. We always take the architects and the landscape designers at their word, and that looks good, let's put it up, as long as it meets the regulations.
There have been sometimes that we've made changes.
Minor changes.
That we have, granted. I don't know, I mean, if we went forward, what would we do? We wind up accepting this with a waiving an architectural rendering, and what would we do? We just continue it anyway.
There's nothing much to even discuss.
Well, that was my point for recommending it, because I didn't see a harm or foul in either direction. And if this saved some money from having to do a renotice of a public hearing, then that was kind of my thought.
I understand that, but you need to have the direction from this board so that you can go to the applicants and say, look, if you need an architectural building, the board isn't gonna approve it, so get it all together and then get it in. I mean, I understand what you're doing, you're trying to facilitate the applicants when they come here, but in a way, you don't have any direction to give them. You know, when you come in here with a waiver request. I would just so I don't forget to say this, depending on where we go, that comments 8 and 9 in regards to the walkway and the bike plan, I just wanna make sure are on there. Sounds like you already
Yeah.
talked to Brian.
No, we already
Okay, you already
agreed
talked
to
about
do
it.
that.
Oh, yeah, okay, because we had talked about doing that.
Yep.
Okay, it's, if there's no more discussion, we need to do something here. Want to do your motion again, Richard, and see if you can gain a little favor?
We're working toward yours, and that's what's important. But I'm not gonna make my motion again. I'll allow anybody who didn't second it to make that motion if they choose, and I will gladly second it.
Are we setting a precedent? That would be another question I would ask as for the board members. Are we gonna, if we were to approve this and move it on, would we be encouraging future applicants to come in unprepared? And saying, well, you did it for them, you should do it for us?
Well, if I can respond to that, maybe not necessarily to future applicants, but just, we have 4 members of the board here, okay? In the future, at least one member won't be here of these 3, okay? When this may come up at some point in time, the only ones that are really gonna be, even though we have minutes, okay, the only ones that are gonna remember this conversation are the 4 voting members here and Brian, the people that are here, all right? And what's gonna happen is the board is gonna look and they're gonna say, oh yeah, that's been waived before, and that's how you set the precedent.
I could say in my mind it's duly noted for sure.
And I think that the applicant, I think the client had fair warning from their own people and from this board that they needed to have certain elements of an application ready, and they chose not to. So I think the choice was theirs, not anyone else's. I mean, they invested in a conceptual and time before the board and just time to come down and present it, and then because they may want to move away from it, they chose not to bring a plan forward. So I would say that it was a conscious choice by the applicant to not give us the renderings, and I think that we should not accept this application at this time.
Just for the record, I would like to clarify that I'm not sure that lead development or Mr. Cruz is the issue here.
Oh, no, I agree.
Because there's an issue as to applicant versus owner versus
I agree. I
AutoZone.
stand
So
corrected.
I just would like to clarify that for the record.
I stand corrected.
And it's just that the corporate office moves at a different rate and didn't see the same urgency as lead development had.
Except that they want to move at the rate to get it approved at the next meeting. So they might be slow on this part, but then they want to hit the pedal and go with the next meeting.
That's being pushed by lead, not necessarily AutoZone.
Okay. And we certainly don't want
I'm
AutoZone
not-
to go away. We
No,
want them.
I understand, and I'm not trying to convince you. I just want to make sure you understand. Lead is the applicant. Lead is driving the time schedule. AutoZone just is moving at a slightly different rate.
Well, that's why I wanted to clarify.
So for the record, I stand corrected, and there's no inference that lead was dragging their feet, that my comment should have been directed directly at corporate AutoZone as the potential tenant of the building, or owner of the building in the end.
Well, I don't think this motion is necessary, but because I think the issue is whether we accept or not whether we don't accept. But I'll make a motion to not accept this and move it on to the agenda, to give everybody proper time for legal notice and redoing the plans for March 14th.
Do we have a process, Barbara, where we can continue the notice without them being forced to renotice?
I don't know that for sure.
I'll ask.
Can
Which I
Brian,
certainly don't have any issue with my motion, which is why I sort of said.
If the board wants to continue it with the assumption that if renoticing is necessary, then that'll be done, we could do that, something like that.
Do we recess the meeting and not adjourn it? And then, no renoticing necessary?
No, we have to
So that
officially.
you're technically in a meeting for 30
Exactly.
days straight?
Indeed we are.
I think you have to renote.
Well, we're gonna be apologetic to the client, but I don't think we have any other position. So Barbara, did you make an official motion at this point?
I don't know. Did I, Gail?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
And could you read her motion back?
She made a motion not to accept the application as complete and to put it on the agenda for March 14th.
And do you want to add without prejudice to your statement, or that's not necessary? Okay, does anybody want to second Barbara's motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Phil.
And I have one question.
Please.
That motion is subject to Brian finding out if there has to be any re-notification? Or,
I'm pretty sure it's gonna have to be renoticed, but.
all right,
Well,
Yeah, me too.
all right.
We'll just leave it alone.
Okay, any other discussion of the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I am.
Richard's opposed. Abstentions? And the chair votes yes, so it's 3-1.
I can be consistent.
And I would just like to point out for the record that we can discuss a non-application longer than an application.
Well, Barbara, thank you for your input.
That's pretty awesome, isn't it?
All right, before we adjourn, there are just a couple of quick action items, if I can find where I put them. Okay? There's a copy of an intent to cut permit for map 10, lot 23, Snook Road. It says Duffield, I assume that's the applicant's name. Staff review. There is a copy of the Town and City magazine for January and February 2013 available through the planning office. And the last thing is we have a notice of telecommunication facility in Milford. Town of Milford's planning board has seen fit to decide there was a regional impact involved with a cell tower. And I'll just read the letter, and I'll give it to you so you can type it in later, I guess. The Milford Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, February 19th, 2013, at 6:30 p.m. in the Board of Selectmen's meeting room at the Milford Town Hall, 1 Union Square, on the request of Crown Castle to replace the existing personal wireless service facility, aka cell tower, site number 807204, located off McGettigan Road, map 10, lot 11. The planning board is going to review the acceptance of the application and take action on a major site plan in accordance with New Hampshire RSA 12-K and Milford zoning ordinance Article 7, Section 7.09 telecommunications facility. Everyone is invited to appear in person or by agent or counsel to state reasons why you think this request should or should not be granted. Written concerns should be submitted to the Milford Community Development Office. So if anybody, Shirley Wilson, Planning Board Secretary. So if anybody has reason to go to the town of Milford for a planning board hearing, we have a notice of regional impact. And that's it for correspondence and FYI. The next meeting is when, Brian? February the 28th?
February 28th.
Okay. I notice here we have a determination on Miller's Landing condominiums. Is that project is dead in the water, right? That went away because they never filed for extension.
Miller's Landing, which one is that?
That's the one on Elm Street going out on the right, going down to the lake.
Yes.
The one where they dug all the fill out and
Yes.
turned it into a bomb zone.
They're still trying to figure out if they have any vested rights. I spoke to the town attorney and
How could they have vested rights?
well, because they obtained a permit and built a portion of their project.
What did they build?
They built, well, they put in a foundation on one of the units. They put in some sewer and water infrastructure on the site, and they upgraded the first unit, Unit 1, which is the existing house that was there. They added some stuff to it, and so that's essentially what it's going to look like. But what they did is they got a permit and they started work and then let that permit expire. So in talking to the town attorney, from my understanding, they could, as long as regulations didn't change from that period to now, could still just come back and ask for a building permit and keep going.
So are we talking about active and substantial completement for vesting? Because that's where vesting comes from, the words active and substantial completion. Substantial completion.
Yeah, and that has been determined by the Supreme Court. What's substantial?
That's where the vesting comes from, that phrase. Not because they took a building permit.
Right. The fact that you take the building permit
That is
may not
insignificant.
necessarily be it.
They also have gone in there and they have, for lack of a better term, destroyed the property and have made no effort to do any erosion control or any type of reclamation in there. The place is an absolute disaster.
Did they get any wetlands permits in there? Because it looks like they went pretty much right down to the edge.
No, I think that property stopped short of the river because of the wetland setbacks as part of our approved plan.
I mean, did they stop? That's what I mean. No, I understand.
They have a silt construction orange fence that's back there up against the wetland area.
Do they have any siltation fences?
I think it is silted back.
There was some.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to, if this is coming through, before we address this, don't we need an opinion from Attorney Dresser on
I'm having him write up something, so.
what active and substantial completion means?
Well, I think it's not necessarily addressing active and substantial development, because that was never defined on their plan as to what that is.
Here we go.
I would just suggest for the meeting that you have exactly what was approved and a timeline for what was obtained subsequent to approval, in addition to whatever Drescher gives you, because Drescher is going to give you at least a 3-page letter in regards to.
And will we have a non-public session prior to that meeting to discuss the attorney's opinions, or are they public information?
You need to address that with town staff. It would probably be a non-public
I would think so.
session.
I would think so. That's why I brought it up.
Because the next meeting will have a new chair, so you need to have the proceedings down for that cold.
No, I'll be the chair of the meeting they're at.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry, because this is going to be February.
28th.
Okay.
I won't
Yeah,
be here the following meeting.
Right, okay.
You'll have a brand-new chair by then.
So, but based on that, you probably need to have because normally for a council letter, we would go into non-public.
That's going to be a attorney decision, plus a decision based on the board's taking of it, because that leaves the door open for anybody who gets a site plan to go in and do a very minimal amount of work and have the site plan then just live in perpetuity, when we have rules about coming back and getting site plan extensions. And most of our applicants that we have had have always been very good about site plan extensions, and they've always come back and done them in a timely fashion. Speaking of which, is Mrs. Bornable's application here for extension? Didn't we discuss this at a previous meeting when John was here? Does that come back?
No.
Okay.
I don't know when her deadline is, but.
Okay. Well, John mentioned it at our last meeting, and I assumed it was looming for him to bring it up.
Probably somewhere near.
Okay. Any other comments or statements from our board? Move to adjourn by Phil.
Second.
Seconded by Richard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Chair votes yes. Thank you very much. Thank you at home.
Thank
you,
you.
Meg.